All right, this is what I watched in February of 2023. So it was a slightly disappointing month compared to last, regarding the number of films I watched and the reviews I write on my website. But it was a good one overall. Um, so luckily, I can use my website and these updates to write mini reviews anyway. Um, so yeah, the main reason for the lack of films was actually watching more TV than usual. The ones I'm about to mention probably account for around 40 hours of screen time. So for me, that's quite a big chunk of time not watching films. So first off was Double Fine um, Psy Odyssey, which is not really a TV show, but this was like the main culprit for my distraction in February. Um, so yeah, I'm a really big gamer, and Double Fine is one of my favorite developers. So um, back in 2012, they crowdfunded a game called Broken Age, and through that, a documentary was also made called Double Fine Adventure, which they kind of released alongside, and that was a look behind the development process from concept to development to release, everything in between, and it was like a really cool behind the curtain look at game development. Um, Not all glamorous side of development, and yeah, it eventually became my favorite documentary kind of ever about games. So earlier in February, they released a 32 episode new series, which was about Psychonauts 2, which is their latest game. So that's kind of my favorite game of 2021 when that came out. So I basically dropped everything I was doing, my watch list, everything, to watch this. And this was like 22 hours of videos. So huge chunk of time. Some of them are around 20 minutes and they range up to, an hour and a half. So quite a long episode. That's basically a movie itself. Um, but yeah, this was like essential to watch if you're into gaming. Even if you don't like Double Fine or play their games or Psychonauts, it was just really good watch. And yeah, I really felt the binge effect on this. I couldn't stop watching it sometimes, watching 3 or 4 or 5 episodes in a row. So yeah, really recommend that one. Next up was Tokyo Vice, which I was going to watch last year, but I never got around to it for some reason. And kind of got mixed feelings on this one. So the main character, what's his called? Elson Elgot. I don't know if that's correct, but he plays the lead character. And to be honest, I just find him a bit bland, acting wise. And I didn't really feel he was that good in this show. Kind of trying a bit too hard, maybe. I'm not sure. Um, so when you combine that with the fact that the character he's playing is kind of cocky and arrogant, is not really a good combination for me. He's based on a real person, but so maybe that's by design. But yeah, not really for me. Impressive speaking skills, Japanese. He had to learn, obviously, Japanese quite quickly. Because the idea is he gets a job at a prestigious Japanese newspaper, and he's like the first foreigner working there, kind of ever. So yeah, Japanese speaking was good. I did like all the Japanese actors and the storylines, like the Yakuza stuff. Ken Watanabe is the detective. He's one of my favorite actors anyway. So they're all really good. But kind of his storyline, like his acting, and there's like a side story with the hostess, a hostess bar character. She's also from like America. And I just found that a bit boring, to be honest. So um, overall, it was okay. I like watching Tokyo in the early 2000s. It was quite cool visually, but and I guess the corruption side of the newspaper and how crimes are not reported properly was quite interesting. But no, his acting and there's some of the filler stuff or side stories were not really that interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'll watch the second season. Um, we'll see in the future. And then Last of Us is the next show. So as I'm recording this, we have 2 episodes, sorry, left. And this is one of the most highly anticipated shows probably of the year. So yeah, huge fan of the games, Last of Us 1 and 2. So I was quite curious on this one, especially produced by HBO. So yeah, so while I'm not like setting off fireworks, cheering on the streets, shouting how this is a masterpiece, like finally a good video game adaptation, I'm really enjoying it. I feel like the game does it better, but that might be biased because I've kind of played the game a couple of times and left quite an impression on me. So, but yeah, pretty good. I mean, looks great, good acting. I was a bit concerned because the first episode is basically like 90% accurate to the game, like shot for shot. But luckily, over that after the episode, going into the second, third, etc., they've kind of been expanding on the game, the source material, adding their own little backstories and stuff. Moving on to films, I did have a list of films that I wanted to watch. So my watch list was, I'll put a picture on the screen maybe, these kind of films. So Lust and Caution, Long Day into Journey, into Night, No Mercy, Witch, Oneda, 800, Spy, Show Must Go On, Go-Yokin, and Escape. But I actually only watched around half an hour of one of these films. So total fail. I started No Mercy and kind of watching it, and I was thinking, this looks a bit familiar to me, like some of these scenes. So I looked on my app, and yeah, I watched it like in 2019. So I kind of stopped watching it because I'm trying to watch more new films instead of rewatching old ones. It's a really good film. I guess the start kind of didn't really leave an impression on me that much. Yeah, it's a really good film actually. Like the ending is crazy. If you're into crime, Korean crime, thriller stuff, it's definitely worth it. So, but yeah, I just stopped because I want to watch new stuff. So I'll put a picture on screen of the stuff that I did watch. So yeah, when I sat down to watch, I got totally sidetracked by Hong Kong cinema. So I was on Netflix browsing, and I used the Japanese and the South Korean. I use a VPN to kind of watch their catalog. And then I thought to myself, I've never actually looked at the Hong Kong catalog. So I'll have a quick look to see what's on there. And yeah, I was like totally floored by so many films I wanted to watch. And luckily, they all have English subtitles just built in to Netflix. Japanese and Korean Netflix sometimes have English, but most of the time they don't. So you have to use a third party like web plugin, browser plugin to find some. And then you run into risk of it not being in time or not like correct words maybe. And so really happy the subtitles work here. So yeah, I just jumped in. I was feeling the mood for some comedy, and I really like Stephen Chow, and I've seen a fair amount of his films, but I have loads of gaps to fill. So yeah, I just jumped in. So they're all kind of very similar movies. I pretty much enjoyed all of them, but I think some are clearly better than others. So, but I guess they're all just kind of silly storylines and gags. So yeah, starting off, I watched $60 Million Man, which was one of the most stupid setups, premises, but it was one of the most fun to watch, actually. So a quick summary: spoiled rich kid living in Hawaii gets blown up by some gangsters, gets caught up with some bad people, and all that is recovered from the blast are his brain and his lips. So pretty strange, right? Crazy scientist from the university informs his dad that it will cost him $60 million to create his son a new body. Unfortunately, he cannot afford 60 million, and he only has 6,000 to spend. So the scientist agrees to build him a new body, and then from there we get Stephen Chow, basically like a Inspector Gadget or the Mask situation, where he can transform into crazy forms, like a kettle or a toilet or helicopter or something out of his head. And the rest of the film is just kind of him being crazy and stupid. So that was quite fun, kind of like a nonsense movie, but good one. Fight Back to School is one I've always heard about, quite a popular Stephen Chow film. think he directed that himself. This also had quite a stupid idea behind it, but a fun watch. Yeah, Stephen Chow is a disgraced police officer after kind of an operation goes wrong. So he's kind of sent to a high school undercover to locate his superior's missing gun. So it's quite funny because he's clearly like, I don't know, a 30-year-old grown man trying to pretend and fit in with teenagers. So he's getting like beaten up and bullied by kids and struggling like with the work, doesn't understand how to fit in very well. But it was quite good, pretty fun one. The ending was kind of crazy, wild, kind of a little bit different from the middle of the film, but definitely enjoyed that one. I watched From Beijing with Love, which was a James Bond kind of rip-off. You can tell by the title. So yeah, basically spy movie jokes, James Bond jokes, action film. So that was quite fun. Opens with him. Well, the film opens with a dinosaur, like Tyrannosaurus Rex skull being stolen, and that's kind of the thing Stephen Chow needs to like recover, basically. So already starts with a stupid idea, so continues that way. Next up, we have Chow is the trick expert in a film called Tricky Brains. Basically, he's hired by someone to pretend to be the long-lost son of a different guy because he wants to ruin his life. So he's hired to kind of get in the family and ruin the family. Yeah, basically loads of crazy situations of him trying to pretend to be a family member where kind of not sure. They like testing him basically. But that was quite fun. Also has Andy Lau, who's one of my favorites. So it's cool seeing them together. Magnificent Scoundrels. This was kind of an interesting one for me. Reminded me a little bit of Parasite actually, with like social status switching kind of thing. So we basically have like people pretending to be different people so they can con other people out of money. So Stephen Chow plays a guy who's kind of in debt, gets caught up with some gangsters. So he hears about an opportunity to pretend to be a overseas investor. So he's pretending to be someone. We also have a different person who's in debt, and he's pretending to be a businessman. So he kind of moves into this guy's house while it's empty, and then the overseas investor, who's actually Chow, comes into the house, and they're having a business meeting, trying to work out some business, deals. But obviously they're both poor, just pretending. So, well, the problem is they're both unaware of the other person's scam. So, kind of funny situation there. Next up, Out of the Dark, which looks like a Leon the Professional ripoff, joke, parody, but it's actually not really. He just looks like Leon. So this one is kind of like a haunted apartment block, and him and some other people, security guards, are trying to cleanse the building. This is probably the most random and nonsense story and structure of all of these films I watched. I probably rate this one my least favorite, especially when it's like 80 minutes long and I kind of struggle to stay with it. And the last one I watched was Forbidden City Cop, which is quite a fun one. Basically, he is kind of one of these royal guards for the emperor, and all of them are like experts in a different form of martial arts, but he has no talent at all for martial arts. So his kind of contribution is he's a wacky inventor, and he comes up with some stupid inventions, like helicopter, for example. And this is obviously set in like ancient China or whatever, hundreds of years ago. So kind of very stupid there, but this was also quite a fun one. See, overall, I had a good time watching Stephen Chow. I feel like the problem with these kind of films is they all kind of blend in together for me. So it's kind of similar to Jackie Chan. So I've seen so many Jackie Chan movies that all of the stunts and set pieces and moments kind of blend in, and I can't quite remember which one is from which film. Probably years from now, I will kind of not really remember what joke was from what film. So, but yeah, all fun to watch. It was really cool seeing Uncle Tat, who died a couple of years ago. He was in so many Stephen Chow films. He's always like the sidekick with him. So yeah, it was really cool seeing him again, actually. So from there, I plan on watching soon, maybe this month, All for the Winner, The Royal Tramp, King of Beggars, and Flirting Scholar. I'm unsure if any of the sequels for the other ones, like Fight Back to School 2 and 3, were made. Royal Tramp had a sequel, I think. Beggars had a sequel. Maybe Scholar even had a sequel. It kind of seems to me that if a film was popular, a sequel would be made like basically the same year, which kind of means they're probably rushed and not quite as good as the original. I mean, Stephen Chow was into like, I think in the 91 and 92, I looked at his Wikipedia, and he was in like 9 or 10 films in one year. So I'm kind of interested in seeing All for the Winner, because it's kind of a parody of a different Hong Kong film called God of Gamblers, which stars Chow Yun-fat. So it was made to parody this film, and then for some reason, the parody characters, parody film, and the original kind of got merged into one film called God of Gamblers 2. So I'm kind of curious how that kind of worked. But yeah, good time with Stephen Chow. So then I moved on to Chow Yun-fat. I noticed loads of films on Netflix that I wanted to watch with him. So I actually noticed a film called An Autumn's Tale, which I'd never heard of before. And the description sounded quite different. So in this one, Chow kind of puts away his Beretta 9mm, his shades, for a kind of different film that I'm used to him being in, actually. In this one, he's like a normal guy living in New York who takes in a younger relative who's come from Hong Kong because she wants to study in the city. So yeah, Chow Yun-fat is the main guy, and then Cherry Chung plays the young relative. And they're really good in this film. Chow is kind of like a scruffy, lovable guy. He's always got like permanent bed hair, cigarette in his mouth, really carefree kind of guy, getting into fights and stuff like that. He works in a restaurant and he spends all his time gambling. Opposite is Cherry, who is kind of young, ambitious, dreaming of spending her life in New York to study with her boyfriend. However, there's some problems there. She kind of has to rethink what she's going to do with her life. Yes, this is like, I feel like set in New York is a genre on its own. But I've never really seen this mentioned on any of the lists you see, like Taxi Driver or Manhattan, kind of the American ones. But I thought this was quite a good New York movie. It's not the glamorous side of New York. It's kind of the normal people living their lives kind of side of it. So, you know, their apartment is in the bad part of the city, maybe. Covered in graffiti, there's mess everywhere. His car is barely held together. The train runs past her window like every 10 minutes, like roars past, sound, the lights coming on. So really hard for her to like study and focus. But no, just a good film, good kind of romantic drama kind of thing. I wasn't 100% sure on a particular storyline thing, but overall, good watch. So yeah, sticking with those two, I watched Once a Thief next, which is a John Woo action heist movie. Yeah, I grew up watching his films, and yeah, got a couple of gaps I need to fill, so this was one of them. So a quick summary of this one is we've got 3 young children who grow up in poverty, and their dad kind of teaches them how to steal and pickpocket and scam people from a young age so they can survive. And we jump to the present, and now these guys are still living together, and they're kind of like a trio of thieves, well-established thieves. They get hired by rich bad guys to steal paintings for them, and they kind of just do this, traveling around Europe kind of at the moment. Yeah, as you can expect, there's a job they do, kind of doesn't go how they planned, so the tables are kind of turned against them. It's kind of that situation where it's like, okay, this is the last job, but then they get offered a really good job next, so they can't turn it down. So that kind of is the job where things don't go well. But yeah, John Woo, so action was awesome, loads of action, quite a lot of comedy and slapstick than I expected, which didn't always work for me in the moment, but you know, you're here for the action, so kind of that worked for me. So yeah, a little bit of a lighter tone than his other films that I've seen, but good story, good acting, good action. Everyone was like having a good time. I felt like I can recommend this one. And then the next Chow Yun-fat one I watched was City on Fire, which is Ringo Lam. Quick summary, he is a undercover cop who infiltrates a gang of thieves, jewelry thieves. So yeah, this was a really good one actually. He plays kind of a goofy guy, a goofy character at the start of the film, especially like with his girlfriend, and he's kind of like laid back in his work as a cop, but things get serious quite quick in this film for him. Yeah, he's got like heat from all sides. He's got his boss breathing down his neck. He's got other cops who don't know he's undercover because obviously it's a secret. He's got the gang itself who are like suspicious of him, making sure he's not a mole, because they did have a mole in their gang before they discovered who was killed. So that's kind of why Chow is now the replacement cop. And his girlfriend is giving him some grief as well. Relationship problems. Not really that fast paced to begin with. A lot of comedy and silly stuff at the beginning, but the action is really good and the ending is just like crazy, like pure adrenaline stuff going on. So yeah, if you like undercover cop films, this is a really good one I can recommend actually. So that was the Chow Yun-fat one so far. A couple more I want to watch, like Prison on Fire maybe, and I think School on Fire is a Ringo Lam, but not Chow Yun-fat film. I'm gonna try and find that. After all this, I kind of hopped over to Japan for a minute, so I watched The Flavor of Green Tea Over Rice and Millennium Actress. I kind of watched these as a pair. So I noticed that Green Tea was on someone's watch list on my letterbox. So I thought it might be a nice change of scenery after all the action. So I put that on, and yeah, really good film. Quite similar to a lot of his other movies, which are about marriage or family, relationships. Yeah, good film. Had a lot of relatable moments and ideas. Quite a lot of comedy with like different social status of people. I find like his films are just quite easy watches anyway, so. And then I went to Millennium Actress after that because I think watching an old movie kind of reminded me of this film because it's basically follows the life of an actress who would have been in those kind of movies in the 50s, 1940s and 50s. And I was also reading a Satoshi Kon manga at the time, his Opus manga. So I think he was just on my mind at the time. Yeah, this is a really good film. This is one of my favorite animated movies. Really creative, well made. The editing and camera that he used in his films was like unrivaled, really. Perfect Blue, this one, Paprika, and Tokyo Godfathers, like all really well made. Obviously, it's very sad that he died so young because I can't really imagine what he would have done next. Yeah, so next up, I went to Yakuza Like a Dragon, which based on the game. So this film came out in 2007, which at that point, I think there was only like 2 Yakuza games out. And right now we've got like up to 8 Yakuza games. We've had loads of remakes. The whole franchise has opened up to the West. It's kind of blown up. So this is a very different Yakuza film compared to the games now. Didn't really like it that much, to be honest. I didn't think it was that good. I wrote about it on the website, so you can kind of read that if you want to have a more detailed look. I just have to remind myself this is based on a Yakuza era that I'm not familiar with so much. I'm more familiar with the newer stuff. And after that, I finished it with Confidential Assignment 1 and 2, which are Korean action comedies. Also got a blog post on those two, so that goes into more depth. I wrote on my post about these that they are very safe, made from a very safe formula for the biggest, widest audience possible. You've seen this film before. Comedy, action, storyline, everything. You know, I just wanted to watch an action film. I didn't really have to think about much on a lazy weekend. So, yeah, I watched them on a Sunday, and I think they fit the bill perfectly. You know, action's fine, comedy's fine. But yeah, not like amazing films that I'm going to be watching again or really thinking about in the future. So, favorites of the month, I would say Millennium Actress is my favorite, but that's a rewatch. So, talking about new films, I would probably say Green Tea and City on Fire would be my top picks. Least favorites, kind of tricky because I didn't really watch any bad films for a change. But I definitely would say Yakuza is at the bottom of my list. Out of the Dark was my least favorite Chow film. In terms of what I want to watch for March, not sure if I should really make a list because I totally failed to follow it in February. Planning on watching some more Chow films, the ones I spoke about. Prison on Fire as well, like I said. And then I want to watch Long Day's Journey into Night because it's on Mubi and my subscription ends in like 4 days. So get some Tang Wei action because I loved her in Decision to Leave. So kind of want to watch a bit more of her. But yeah, that was kind of my wrap up. Pretty good overall. Definitely want to try and step up the films for March because I was a bit lagging behind. But yeah, that's kind of it. I want to write a review for a Korean film called My Dear Enemy, which I watched in January. So if you're interested in that, I'll have a post on my website hopefully soon. So Yeah, thanks for watching or listening to this first episode. Yeah, hope it came out well, and catch you all soon. Thanks.